In this video, we are going to take a look at a very versatile, well-known tool inside of Photoshop called the Pen tool. Now, the Pen tool has a lot of things you can do with it, such as creating selections and masks, but it also creates vector shapes. Now, a vector graphic is basically a scalable graphic that no matter how big or small you make that graphic, it doesn't lose any of the resolution. So it's not using pixels like a photo would use, it's using mathematical algorithms to calculate these shapes, and you don't have to worry about all that. Just know that it's widely used in design work, like say logo design. You can create a logo and then use it in multiple projects, and it doesn't matter how big or small that logo is, it's not going to lose its resolution. So let's go ahead and take a look at that now. If you look down underneath the Dodge tool, we'll see the Pen tool with the shortcut letter P, and we have the Pen tool, the freeform pen tool, the curvature pen tool, add anchor point, delete anchor point, and convert point tool. So we'll start with the Pen tool, and basically you just come out here, make sure that you have path selected at the top, and we can just start clicking and create a shape. So whenever I hover over the last point, you'll see a little circle pop up next to the cursor, and if I click on that, it closes that shape for us. Now once we have this shape, we have the ability to go back and edit the shape later on. If this wasn't perfect, I could come back and move these points around, and I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. But let's take a look at some of the options for this shape. So first, we can make it into three different things. We can make this path or the shape into a selection, a mask, or shape itself. Now, keep in mind, the points make up a path, and the multiple paths make up this shape here. And we can take this shape and we can do different things for it. So for instance, let's turn it into a selection by clicking the selection button at the top. It's going to ask us if we want to feather it or have anti-aliasing. We'll just hit OK. And now it turns into a selection for us. So the Pen tool is another way that we can make selections. I'm going to undo that. And then now let's make it a mask. So we click on that, and it creates a layer mask on our layer. So it turned the background layer into a regular layer, called it layer 1, and create a layer mask for us. And the great thing is, again, we can edit this shape and it will essentially edit the mask for us. So we will undo that. And then now finally, we can make it an actual shape. So this would be a vector shape. So I'm going to click on that, and it turns it into a shape for us. And if we double click on that, we have the option to change its colors and do all the normal things that we would do with a shape. Now you can see this shape has a fill color of black and a stroke color of blue. And if we went down to the shape tool, we would actually be able to change these options. So the shape tool is down here near the bottom. It looks like a rectangle, or it could be one of these other shape tools that we have here. But if we select that, we can actually turn the stroke off, have it have no stroke, or we can have a stroke and turn the fill off and just have the stroke. So now that we have this Pen tool and we've created these paths, we have the ability to create all these awesome looking shapes this way also. So let's just turn it black, and we'll turn the stroke off for now so we can look at it. We'll go back to the Pen tool, and we have all these points making up these paths, and then we can edit this in a couple different ways. So if we hover over the one of the points, it might be a little hard to see, but the cursor turns into a minus sign, and it's going to actually delete that point for us. So if I click on that point, it deletes it and recalculates the shape. Now this is because I have auto add and delete on at the top. So if you uncheck that, it won't do this. You'll have to use one of the tools, but I leave it on, and it's a quick way for me to come in and delete out any of these points that we want. If we want to add in a point, we can just click. Well, let's go ahead and undo that real quick. If we want to add in a point, we can just go ahead and click anywhere on the path, and it'll turn into a plus sign. So when I click here, we've added in another point. Now this point actually added in two other points here, and what these are handles. So I am going to actually, let's just delete this and create a new one so this is a little easier to see. So we'll create our box here. Okay, so it's just a path. I haven't made it into a shape or anything. And if I click on the center, you'll see it adds a point, but then it adds in these other two handles. These are handles for curving your shape. So what that means is we can actually grab these And when we grab the handles, you can see the point stays centered, but the handles allow us to curve this shape. So this is a way to get some dynamic looks for your graphics or your design work, and we can move this around also. So we have the ability to adjust all those. So let's undo these, and I'll show you how to create that. So select the pen tool, and we can either click and add those handles in, or while we're drawing, if we click and then click again, and then let's say the third time we need a curve, if we click and hold, it'll pull out those handles for us. And then if we click again and hold, it'll pull out handles this way. And if we don't want handles on the next click, we can just click and it'll give us sharp corners, and then we can curve them again. So I escaped out of that. This is great for doing a logo like this. So I can start here, click down here, then come up here and start curving a little bit. Click here and curve around this W, and this isn't perfect. I'm just going kind of quick. But I can very quickly recreate this logo with the pen tool because I have the ability to make sharp corners and curved corners. And to make those curved corners, I'm just clicking and dragging to make those. So if I hit selection here, you can see it's not perfect, but I was able to follow around the lines of that logo because I'm able to click once and make hard points, or click and hold to make these curved points. So we'll undo that, and we'll go ahead and escape out of there so it doesn't keep that. So when I create the box and I add a point, it's going to give us those handles. Now, if I want to adjust any of these, I can just hold down the Command or the Control button, and it gives me an arrow, and then I can pull these points around. And I can grab this and pull it around. Now when I click on that one, because it has the handles, it gives me the options to grab those, so I can move those around. I can move this around. And that gives us a way to edit those. Well, what if we don't want this to be curved? We want this to be a hard edge, just like these other points. Well, if we hold down the Alt or Option and hover over that point, it turns into a different cursor. It looks like a not closed arrow. And if I click one time, it changes it into a hard edged point. So now if I hold down Command or Control and I move that, we don't have the handles anymore. And we can do the opposite. We can turn any of these into a curved handled point by holding Alt or Option, clicking on it and dragging, and it'll pull out the handles for us so we can have nice curved points. We can do that with any point. So I can click this corner and pull that out, and it'll curve it around for us. And then let's say, oh, we didn't want this one curved. I can hold Alt or Option, click on it, and it will turn it back into a hard point there. So that's how you can actually edit and adjust these. So you could recreate this logo very easily by creating these paths, and then by using Control or Command or Alt or Option, you can change the points, move them around, make them hard, make them curved, and recreate this logo here. So let's take a look at some other options. If we make multiple shapes together, we can combine them, subtract from each other, intersect, or exclude them. We can align the shapes together, so we can align them all to the left or the right or top or bottom. We can distribute them and so forth. And then we can also tell, do we want the shapes to be on top of one another? This works kind of like layers, only it's on a per shape basis. So do we want if we have two shapes, which one do we want to bring to the front or bring to the back, and so forth? We also have some extra options such as the path, so we can actually change the thickness of the path so that we can see it a little easier if we need to. And then do we want to auto add and delete those points as we use this tool? So now if we go ahead and we click over into the pen tool itself, you see we have some other tools that we'll look at, the freeform and the curvature pen tools, but we also have the add anchor point, delete anchor point, and convert point tool, and these are just like the shortcut keys that we were using. So if you turn off auto add and delete at the top options, you'll have to go in and select one of these tools and use them manually. So I can use the add anchor point tool to add points to my shape. The same thing is I can use the delete anchor point tool, and when I hover over a point, it gives me the minus sign and I can delete those out. And also the convert point tool, which is just like holding down the Alt or Option. So we can click and drag and pull the handles out, or we can click on the point and turn them into hard points here. We also have the freeform pen tool. So when I click on that, this will allow me to click and just drag around any shape that I want so I can follow or trace a picture, and it'll automatically figure out the points for me, and then using those tools for the pen tool I can go in and clean that up. So that gives me the ability to do this freehand, especially if I have a tablet, and make it very easy. And then we have the curvature pen tool. It's like the pen tool, except you don't have the option to make hard lines. This first one looks hard, but as I start clicking, I don't have handle points, and it's only going to create these curved lines for me. So I don't really have a way to create any hard edges. So it's specifically for curved type surfaces, and it just makes it a lot easier to do those types of services. So those are the pen tools. You have the pen tool, the freeform pen tool, and the curvature tool, along with the different add anchor point, delete anchor point, and convert point tools that you can use with shortcut keys. But you'll find a lot of uses for the point tools, whether you need to make a selection, you want to create a custom mask, or you're creating shapes inside of Photoshop. And then one final thing that you can look at on the toolbar, if you look underneath the type tool, we have the path selection tool and the direct selection tool. So the path selection tool, shortcut letter A, if I click on that, it's going to allow me to select a whole path. Now I can't edit these, but if I need to move them around, this is what I would use. So I can click on this, and then I can move my shapes around wherever I need to, instead of trying to select all the points and move them together. So that's the path selection tool. And then the direct selection tool works just like if we are holding down the control or command button for the pen tool. It allows me to click on these points and then edit them. They were all selected, so when I first grabbed them and moved them, they all moved together. But if I just click on one point, and then I can move that point around and also move the handles. So that's just like using the control or command button with the pen tool, but you can use these tools here too. Path selection tool is pretty popular because it allows you to just easily grab a whole path and move it around that way.